is they'll eat you up. They will eat you
Nah,
up.
yeah.
All right, so we're technically live, but I am going to give them a few more minutes to log in. So we'll just chit chat for a second.
That's fine.
All right, all right. Let's do this here. Let me just fix this right here. Boom, 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 boom. I'm gonna make this 2 minutes. Let me ask you a question. How long it take you to grow that? See, I'm a bald man, so I'm gonna ask this question. It's gonna sound weird, but how long it take you to get that perfect afro? Cause I miss my
Uh,
afro.
so I haven't gotten my hair cut since sometime in maybe the beginning of March.
Okay.
So not that long. Yeah, my hair grows fast, man.
Man, I remember those days, brother. I used to have a
Yeah,
head full of
I, I,
hair.
I don't have that problem at all, brother. Like I have like I only have like 3 grays. My hair grows so fast, man. No,
Ah.
yeah. That.
Do you mind if I curse? Not f bombs, but do you mind if I curse?
Oh man, look, it's your
For
show.
sure. All right.
Yeah,
That's
it's your
some
show, brother.
bullshit, man. That's some bullshit, counsel. That is some bullshit. That my hair is the way it is. I'll pull this hat off if I didn't want to lose all love from my wife. I don't think my wife. I wear my hat so much. I don't think she knows how bald I am.
You sleep in the hat too, brother?
Man, I might get this thing glued on. I tell you what, it's that bad. But
Yeah, man. But see, it's not. It's also what I put in too, right? So people, I don't like you can't, I don't drink, I don't eat meat, so I never smoked or anything like that. I never drank alcohol in my life, so
oh wow.
yeah, that's what it is. I treat my body like it. I know I'm going to be using it in a strenuous way and trying to stay in tip top shape.
I wish somebody would have told me that. That's all they had to do is tell me, look, instead of say no to drugs and all the other campaigns that were effective, just say you gonna go bald if you drink. And if you drink, man, I wouldn't have drunk a lick of it. I would have drunk water if I knew I'd have got bald. I just bet my had my bitches. But uh, Council President Brandon Scott, I'm going to get right to it. Number one, I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for being truly a man of the people. I have my From Baltimore with Love shirt on right here.
All
And
right.
you coming on this platform is definitely reiterating that theme of Baltimoreans showing each other love. And before I get into some of the questions that are of my own and of the fans that submitted questions, how can they reach you if in the future someone wants to talk to you, discuss any kind of policies, and/or even have you on your show? On their show.
Yeah, the easiest way to get us is easy. Just send an email. It's
Okay.
councilpresident@baltimorecity.gov.
Okay.
The phone number is 410-396-4804. And all of my social media is at councilpres, PRESBMS. BMS, M as in Muhammad,
Okay.
BMS.
All right, that's perfect. And one other important thing you told me off air was they would have to also give me a $20 stipend to facilitate that. Because if they're watching this show and hopefully they're liking and subscribing, you don't just get free games. So if you're watching this show, throw me $20 and then I'll give you the information he just gave you for free.
That's
That's how we work.
hilarious.
Um, so before we jump into some of these topics, how are you feeling at this very moment, being in the position you are in? It's a unique position that a lot of humans, let alone Baltimoreans, find themselves in. How are you feeling being in this position right now for a layman? What is this like?
I mean, I feel normal, man. I feel right. When you're of a city, you're from a city, when you dedicated your life to trying to work for a city, you know that the things that are going to come to you are yours and they're going to come in due time. So I am feeling good personally. I'm in good health. I'm worried about trying to make sure that we're keeping people healthy and safe. We know that we still have Corona, COVID-19 running rampant. As we talk, we seen other states have spikes in places that were opening back up. So I want people to continue to treat COVID today just like they did in February, March, and April. And then, of course, in Baltimore, we still have an ongoing epidemic of gun violence in our city that we know we have to deal with and tackle. But I'm feeling perfect. People, sometimes they say like, doesn't it feel odd, you know, being in that seat, coming from where you grew up in Park Heights, and being so young? I said, nope. It doesn't feel odd to me because I know what's right, and I know that me being here means that more people like me can come from behind me and be better than I was at every step of the way.
Council President, I don't know how good you are at this, but you somehow almost answered all of my questions within a 10-second blurb right there. So I'm gonna take some notes on that when I rewatch this and say, "Damn, that was smooth." You also touched on the COVID and the pandemic we're dealing with. How has it affected you, I guess, professionally and or personally? When I mean personally, extracurricular activities, like if you like to go to the movies, go to the gym. How has it affected you, who's still a human?
Yeah, I mean, personally, in a personal, just Brandon Scott, not the elected official a portion, is affecting me just like everyone else, right? Like, think about it. I love spending time with, when I'm not working, over with my grandmother, visiting my grandparents, even not being able to do that, right? Having to, everything that I do with my grandmother is done on the end of the phone or the other side of the door, right? Like that's, she wanted some crabs, and I went and got her some crabs and tied it to the door, tied it to the door. It's just that, like, that's the hard part, right? And then not being able to go to the gym. Like, I go to the gym every day, or I'm a nighttime gym person. People say, like, why don't you go to the gym early before you start your day? I say, well, if I go to the gym at 6 o'clock, by 9 o'clock I'm stressed out again. So no, I'm not. I'm gonna go to the gym like late at night is when I typically go. Not being able to, I'm 36 now, but I like to still remind all the young 20-somethings in Baltimore that participate in the Volo City Flag Football Leagues that I'm still the fastest, and that
talk your stuff.
And that no one can guard me, and you're not gonna catch the ball if I'm guarding you.
Yeah.
That I still like to remind them of that, and I can't do that right now. Not being able to play my weekly basketball games is killing me. Killing me, man. So
you more of a handles, or you got a jump shot, or was it both?
So I am a all-world defender. Let's start there.
Okay.
Let's start there. And it depends. Really, it depends, right? I don't like to handle the ball, but I can in a punch. I have a deadly floater. If you leave me open for a three, it's going to go in. Especially, like, I always say that, this is no shade, right? You got guys who want the ball with 2 seconds on the clock. That's me. Okay. I can literally miss every single shot all game. Okay. But if you come see me playing with my friends in this game point, or for example in one of our Volo leagues one time, I had missed every shot, but we were in a playoff game, 2 seconds left, I got the ball, floater, bang, game winner. It's just the clutch gene is big for me, much like the election. The clutch gene.
Okay, I like that. I'm the opposite. I grew up. Actually, we're around the same age, so you remember and wonder how important that was to the culture of that.
Oh, yeah.
So I would dribble all day. I got all the new moves, hot sauce, professor, and I would miss the shot every damn time. Every time. I would hit you up and down the court and then miss the shot. So I guess if I was on the same team, I would dribble and just pass you the ball every time, and we would make it work.
Well, yeah, I always tell folks, as long as you play defense, I don't mind if you miss. If you shooting, if you working on the other end, that's fine. Right. But if you ain't playing no defense, and coming from my coaching days, timeout. Go ahead, sit down. Yeah.
I ain't mad at it. Sit down. Juneteenth just passed. What does this day of remembrance mean to you, and how could you incorporate this further as far as for the whole city to appreciate and to know when you become mayor?
Yeah, man, I think that, like, Juneteenth for me is time for us to reflect on everything that our ancestors went through, like the things that they literally died for us to be at the position that we're at now, and it shows why we can't get complacent and how far though they put us in a place and we now come so far, we even have further to go, right? Like, that's the reality. That's the reality. And then as we move forward, I think about, like, the way I spent my Juneteenth, right? Going out to support the young people's protest, going out to support Out for Justice and JOTF's Father's Day Juneteenth bailout that they did down at the bookends, right? Trying to go and support people who are doing this work of trying to help us still obtain this freedom, right? This full freedom. And I think that what we can do now moving forward in Baltimore, and something I'm going to be excited to do, is like thinking about Juneteenth and those efforts as in a broader sense, right? Fully implementing my racial equity law so that we're investing in the capital investments, in particular into the black neighborhoods that have been left behind on purpose. But even thinking about how we can bring the city together, right? Why can't Afran be on Juneteenth?
Woo!
They can't. Right? I'm the mayor. I can say whenever it's going to be, right? Like, think about how powerful that would be to have all black Baltimore celebrating Juneteenth around Afran.
Oh, that would be perfect. I didn't even think of that. See, that's why some people deserve to be mayor and some people should just ask the question. That is crazy. That would be so powerful because we already have a culture of, knowing Afran represents not only African Americans within the Baltimore community, but the DMV and beyond. But now you're gonna make that coincide with the actual holiday, with the Remembrance.
And the holiday will be on a Saturday next year. So,
man, let me tell you something. Any way I could help, whether it be a flyer or yelling loud at people, you let me know. I would love to be a part of that. That is monumental. That is dope. Daggone, that's really good. All right, so I got another idea, and it was just this one. How about you put Juneteenth and Afram together? You see that? You like that? All right, we're gonna talk about that later. I got some more ideas for you. I read an interview you had with Dan Rodericks, I believe his last name, Baltimore Sun, packed with great topics. So those who haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It was a nice one-on-one. I believe it was just they could just read it. I couldn't find any audio, but it covered a bunch of stuff. One being the topic of defunding the police in order to reallocate funds to other preventative health and wellness programs, resources, etc. Why is this such a hot topic, do you think, in your opinion?
Well, I think when you think about everything that's happening in the country, I think that you see that people are starting to understand you can't continue to do the same things over and over and expect different results, right? For us here in Baltimore, not just myself, but there have been other folks and community folks and even some other elected officials who've been saying prior to the latest uproar because of the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the list goes on and on and on, right? About how we have to reimagine what public safety is, right? I said infamously, I don't even know how many years ago now, that we have to look at gun violence in Baltimore for what it truly is. It's a disease. It's a public health issue. And you don't cure a disease by attacking one symptom. You don't. You can't, right? But think about it. For your life, entire life, and my entire life, the city has been thinking, and the country and the world really has been thinking that solving crime or reducing crime is solely a function of the police. But that never was true. But also, if having the best funded police department was the surefire way to make us the safest city in America, we would be the safest city in America. But we're not. What we now have to understand is that when folks are talking about defund, is reimagining and then doing it in a way that's also responsible, right? Because we have to understand that, one, right, we have a federal consent decree for police reform in Baltimore that we asked for, right? This isn't one of the instances where the feds just came in and took over. Right. We said this police department, and now I'm about to go into professor mode, this police department that operates in the city, that the state controls, not the city, that the city council can't tell what to do, has all these racist policies and practices, and we needed to reform. Well, when you agree to that, then guess what you also agree to? You agree to funding those reforms, right? So I've been saying even prior to this budget season, right? Folks can go pull a tape, look at the budget hearings from 2019, said that starting with this budget that we just started, right? We're going to have to responsibly and systematically, over a period of time, reduce BPD's budget so that we can fully fund the current commission, which is going to require our school funding to go up, which is something that's absolutely needed. We know that the state of Maryland owes Baltimore City Public Schools around $300 million a year. They know the city needs to do more, right? So that we can do that, so that we can invest in trauma and mental health, right, and behavioral health instances that happen in the city. Why do we have our police officers responding to behavioral health instances in a city like Baltimore that has Johns Hopkins University, Maryland, all these great health and mental health and behavioral health facilities, right? We have to reimagine that. Recreation and parks funding, job training and workforce training, reimagining how we do reentry. That's what it's about. But you have to do that in a responsible way, not poo-pooing on the consent decree, which we know could cause us problems with the federal government and some other things that we don't want, and we know we need those reforms that don't ignore the fact that we have a violence issue and we have to stop the flow of illegal guns into the city and hold people accountable for the things they do, but also that we have to take the burden off, right? We shouldn't be sending police officers out to all of these instances. Like anybody who hasn't seen it, and since everyone's at home, you should check out the Charm City documentary that PBS did. I'm featured in it. It's on Amazon Prime, and you can see some of the things that I'm talking about, right? I've been talking about for years that we need to have minor reports for crimes and things like that should be either handled online or over the phone, like they do. For example, Charlotte takes about 10,000 reports a year online for minor crimes, meaning that they don't ever interact with a police officer. And some instances we need to have other people responding. For example, I'll give you two quick examples. And that they actually caught on footage because there were some police officers being filmed in a documentary too. Someone called 911 and said there was this big disturbance, and the officer went barreling down the street. Guess what it was when he got there? It's a kids marching band. Meanwhile, somewhere
Karen.
No, this wasn't a Karen.
Wasn't a Karen?
No. When you see where it is, you know it wasn't a Karen. Meanwhile, somewhere in South Baltimore, someone was actually in real need of assistance from the police, right? And another one was a senior lady whose husband was cheating with her on Facebook, and she wanted the police to help with that. Those kind of incidents happen, and we could change that and deal with the mental stuff as well.
Just for those who heard me comment Karen and thinking I was making a racial stab at a particular group, that's not the entire case. Karen is more of a type of person. I've had Karens of all different backgrounds, ethnicities, sexualities, who are just petty. So I wasn't saying per se a white lady named Karen that calls on, just let people know, this is not safe here. We like to have fun, but I'm also inclusive. I want everyone to, be able to be a part of this conversation. That is crazy, and I 100% agree with it. I can even give, not to give too much information out about my personal life, but there were times when I was growing up and the police weren't just there for the most obvious conflict resolution, right? They were there almost the time to talk to my family. It was almost like a social worker in a sense, and I would feel guilty involving them, but at the same time, as a young kid without many opportunities or tools to stop some of the chaos in my life, that's the only thing I had to go to. And I can only imagine them having to deal with us and going through that, and then having to run and deal with some real stuff, and then that, how many, not useless calls, but how many more calls could be treated much more efficiently. And that's what you're talking about, the right people for the right job type of thing.
And those hours that get saved from them having to, the police ended up taking someone from the hospital from a behavioral health incident that they don't really need to be handled in the first place, right? Think about how that translates into some dollars that can be allocated to other things.
Makes perfect sense. Now, there are some people who think that the funds shouldn't be necessarily reallocated, all right, or reimagined to other places. Maybe more training for police officers, hand-to-hand combat, martial arts, and more frequent training, so they're under the fire or under the stress, they react, not so much grabbing for the weapon, but be able to physically apprehend. A lot of times you see videos online of police getting outrun, they're in terrible shape, or if they're in a physical altercation, they can't fight. So just out of the fight or flight type of mechanism of it all, they go for the gun, the true equalizer. Do you think, is that an answer, or are you also thinking of, yes, we are going to invest more in training for the police, hand-to-hand combat, so if they have to apprehend a suspect, they can do it safely without hurting them, George Floyd, but also not by shooting, jiu-jitsu, grappling, boxing, whatever it may be. combative?
Yeah, so they get a lot of that training, and here in Maryland, they're required to have a certain amount of hours of training every year. But we know that the training is not it's not the panacea to that, right? Like we have to have and continuously improve training, make it more equitable, make it more relatable to Baltimore and our communities. Actually, also it featured in that documentary in Charm City that's on Prime. You can actually see now we train and have through Baltimore Community Mediation Center something called Youth Dialogue Training. That you see the first one that we piloted in my old council district in my neighborhood, actually, where we go through the department and take 500 high school students, 500 officers, and train them like through the lens of big mix, like mediation kind of conflict training, right? Like that. We're going to try to expand those kind of things, but I think that training, making sure that they're going through equity training, making sure that they do a lot of the grappling, all of those kind of things. But it's also, the racial bias training, all that stuff is important. All that stuff is important. But this is the reality. We also have to have a dedicated effort to home growing the people who serve in those roles, right? So imagine this. We have high schools, and what school did you go to? I got to ask you the quintessential Baltimore question.
Yeah, I was a county boy. I went to Owings Mills High School, but I'm from LA, so I don't know if I was really ever a part of. I don't know, but yeah, Owings Mills High School.
Where I come from in Park Heights, we call Owings Mills and Randallstown Park Heights North. So we accept you in, my brother.
I appreciate it. Through unity, we will be strong.
But like, so imagine this. We have because everyone we grew up with like moved out there when
Section 8 saved.
Yeah. So imagine we have schools in Baltimore, like right now, right? So at Mervo, where I went, and some other schools, they have these criminal justice tracks in high school. We also have like a cadet program in the police department where 17 to 20-year-olds can get paid $30,000 a year to learn, get trained, go to school. Well, there's no connectivity in those programs. Flip side, there is the connectivity on the fire. So one of my mentees that I mentored from the time she was in middle school went to Vivian T. Thomas High School. She was in the EMT track. When she graduated high school, she went straight into the fire academy, went through all of these things, right? We have to build that in for BPD and even expand the firearm, because even if we're graduating 30, 40 of these young people a year, and 20 to 25 of them take advantage of the cadet program, that they're going to get paid for 3 years before they're actually a police officer and go to the academy to learn and train of the community, the results are going to be different, right? And for a young man and young woman who's already interested in criminal justice, $30,000 a year at 18 years old is a lot of money. It's life-changing for them, right? We have to reimagine how we can home grow, too, and we have to have an investment in it.
I love that idea. I definitely love that idea. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. You're running for mayor, right? You are running for mayor, right?
That's the rumor.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. All right, I like this. My wife, my one and only, my parole officer, she allowed me to have this interview. Understand that? She has a question. She wants to ask you this question here. Her name is
Happy life, happy life, brother.
Man, it took me about a year to realize it, and ever since then it's been happy. The first year I was still struggling. But she asked me this question. She wanted me to ask you. Her name is Monikia. How do you plan on recruiting new officers, considering the intensified stigma associated with the job? I'm aware there's been an uptick in officers quitting their jobs around the country due to the outcry from the public regarding police brutality, and I assume it will eventually reach Baltimore. So you kind of touched on it, but in more the immediate, like if you the mayor next year, how are you going to combat that? As it seems like the trend is going the opposite way.
Well, for us, this is an issue that we've been grappling with for a long time, right? And I don't know if you guys have seen that we now have like a new whole recruitment campaign that they have, like highlighting people from Baltimore that have become police officers. I'll send that to you. And listen, this is a profession that already around the country was having this issue, right? People not wanting to sign up. But I also see it as an opportunity for us to go out and attract people who actually want to do it for the right reason. And I think that how we do our recruitment, right? When you're living in a city that we know so many people are looking for opportunities to help and serve their neighborhood, targeting more here in Baltimore, doing all the work that I just said about home growing, right? Looking at all those individuals. That's how we're going to have to do it. It's not going to be an easy task by any means, right? But we have to be very dedicated in reaching out to those, using our colleges and universities. I know that there was a time where many of the folks that are in the police department now, especially African Americans who are in the black people who are in the department who came here from New York, like you, Yankee lovers, came to Baltimore.
It was actually California, but I'll take New York too.
Oh yeah, California. Yeah. For some reason, I thought you said New York. So came here from New York. Coppin and Morgan, who ended up being police. Like, we have to use that network that we have here. We don't tap into that at all either. It's going to be a tough job for everybody, but we just have to know that we're up to the task. And again, the importance is also building that infrastructure for us to home grow it in the first place.
Right. No. Yeah, I like that. I like that. It's definitely going to be, it's that stigma, that snitching, that working with the police type of thing. We have to erase it, but we got a lot of history, systemic issues that we're trying to, not rebrand, but just clean a slate. And it's definitely going to be an uphill battle, but I think it's something with someone like you leading it, we can definitely change. I have a question. Now, I think we're about 20 minutes in. How do we have 5 more minutes? 10 more minutes?
Yeah, we can do at least 5. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Another question. It's a question and somewhat of a statement from someone I know, Evan Hall. The question is, how will we regain economical prosperity within our less affluent communities while also addressing the incestuous crime that plagues these same communities? And this is what she said. So that was my original question, and I posted it online. And this is what she said. We can't just tell people in poverty to stop killing each other. They need resources, they need health care, they need gainful employment, they need affordable housing, they need access to transportation and fresh produce. Food deserts are real. People without cars who live in the hood don't have access to grocery stores. They live on a carry-out diet, and the gut is a second brain. So the more trash you eat, the more your critical thinking skills are lacking. It's not a problem of the people. It's the way of the system and how it's designed. Do you agree with that statement? If it wasn't too much to hear, and how do you think we can? Is it the chicken or the egg? How do we fix this?
It's the chicken and the egg at the same time, right? Because we have to build systems that work for everyone and not just for some. Like, I think that we have to just walk back a little bit. We have to understand the reason why I passed the equity assessment program, Baltimore's equity law, is because when you think about Baltimore, you have to think and know that Baltimore, the segregated way that we live today in Baltimore, was actually created via policy, right? We are the birthplace of housing redlining segregation via policy, in the very chamber that I oversee every week, right? A guy who would become mayor, Preston, who Preston Street is named after for now until I get my hands on it, created a policy that they then took across the country. And the only way that you're going to undo inequity, racial segregation that was created via policy is via policy. It's not going to be good enough to have a black mayor or a woman leading an agency, someone from the LGBTQ community leading an agency, or someone who lives in public housing leading an agency, if that agency's policies and practice were written at a time where they didn't think those groups of people were equal or deserved anything. So you got to start there. You have to build a new system, right? There's no way around that. You have to make that system work for the people directly, and we have to change that. We have to build in that infrastructure too, and I think that's why it's important that what I talked about, right? When you look at, there's a report that we had a few years ago while we were going through this process of this now law that will have to be enforced when I become mayor, with like $700 million of city capital dollars, like the big investment dollars city makes into neighborhoods, went to rich white neighborhoods, and very little went to poor black neighborhoods. That's what you have to do, right? I actually talk about in my economics plan on my website, brandonforbaltimore.com, about how in what I call healthy food priority areas, just because I don't want to keep stigmatizing our neighborhoods by saying deserts, right?
I like that.
Right? That the city should operate grocery stores until we get the places. Because I understand grocery stores, they operate on like a 1% profit to begin with, right? So we have to step up and step in there. We have to do more policy around changing what people have access to and eat. Like, for example, I caught a lot of flack a few years back when I passed a law that banned sugary drinks from kids menus. But what the like, if you look back at the tape, right, you'll hear me say, like, listen, if we want our young people to be able to reach their highest potential, we have to make sure that they are putting into themselves things that we know will not inhibit that in any way, right? When you eat, and like when I did the law, 5 years ago now, that every time a carry out or something, a restaurant is closed for health reasons, they have to list out why. Because if you're living in a healthy food priority area, a neighborhood that has vacant houses, that has guns and drugs galore, and you're a young person, you're eating from this carry out every day. That carry out, they got, mice turds on the food, you're drinking every day. Like, all of that together is a ecosystem for all the stuff that happens later, and that's why we have to address it all at the same time. We have to provide the opportunity for them to get healthier food, healthier options, do all of that work that I'm talking about, but also and simultaneously doing that cultural change within ourselves to say, listen, we got to break away from right these things. So I think it's the chicken and the egg at the same time. And it's not going to be easy work. It ain't going to be handled in one term, but we got to begin that tough work now.
I love it. A few more questions. We are almost done. I feel like I got like 30 more seconds. We're going to jam pack it in. And we are done. Thank you so much, Councilman, for coming on. Really appreciate it. I'm riding through the city. Dirt biking starting to become a thing. I remember reading somewhere of someone trying to start maybe like a giant park with the kids and the adults can actually use those skills, because it's kind of amazing some of the stuff they can do on these dirt bikes. And then maybe transition that into like a motocross X Games, or even having our own game, cities versus us versus Atlanta or Philly. Is there any talks of maybe doing something like that, or is that too far down on the list to worry about at the moment?
Well, there's been talks before about it. I haven't heard them recently. The big issue has always been the liability. I will tell you that when I was running, we were running 300 Men March. We actually, this is going to be a funny story. People probably won't even believe it, but a lot of people were there. We actually had the police, back when my friend Major Colonel Melvin Russell was the major of Eastern District, block off the street, so that we could show people that we could then, through my brother Munir, get the dirt bike culture to come out, tell everybody we're going to have X amount of hours to be able to do it, and then when it's over, we need everybody to leave in a peace and safer manner. And guess what happened? We had no issues, right? Like, you can imagine. But we have to figure out, well, listen, I always tell folks, dirt biking is not going away in Baltimore. It's part of our culture. Like, that's the reality. And we have to figure out a way. There are organizations like B360 and Park Heights that are teaching the young people, using it as a STEM tool to teach them. We have to figure out a way to integrating it all, to making an opportunity for our young people and keeping people safe.
I get it. Liability is the big thing. Last question. This is from Adele and Jack from the Turnbull Brock Meyer Law Group. A lawyer I've had on the show. He touches on topics of COVID, going back to work, self-defense, how to, get between police brutality, but also follow the law, rule of law. So I just want to give them a shout out. They want to talk about sex trafficking being an issue, a global issue, but definitely something that we should pay attention to and try to address in the city. what are you planning on how to deal with that type of stuff?
Yeah, listen, we got to be vigilant, man. I think that people don't take this serious enough. We know that our young people, especially our young women and young men, are at risk for this kind of stuff, and we have to, as a community, be more vigilant too. And we're gonna have to dedicate to forcing our police agency to have a more dedicated focus on that and on intimate partner violence as well, because that's something else that we have not been paying enough attention to. And we saw what that in the system, what that led to with the triple homicide last week with the young lady who was pregnant and the toddler.
100%. Councilman, one last statement. I love everything you're saying, and if I could vote for you right now, I would vote for you. And a lot of times with politics, right, we become tired of the game, and somebody you get behind and you find out they was kicking pigeons in the harbor, or they were pushing over old ladies at the grocery store. Is there anything we should know that you feel comfortable? Like, you know what? One time when I was shooting a jumper, I smacked somebody in the stomach, and is there anything we should know about that could come out on TMZ and we'd be like, daggone, I wish he'd have said something ahead of time?
I'll just start there. When I'm on the field, I'm on the court. I am not the council president. I'm a player. So I will do or say anything to win. I talk trash. I'm gonna let you know. I grew up watching '90s basketball, so I don't believe in. There's no such thing as an easy layup or a fast break. So you're gonna have to shoot the free throw, and if you're from the LeBron era and don't like to be touched, that's not my problem.
Oh, you throwing shots at LeBron. Oh, all the LeBron fans gonna hate
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I hope the LeBron fans watch The Last Dance so they know what clutch is like. But I will say this. Aside from that, like I said, man, for me, this is what I always wanted to do, right? So, and for me, when I wake up every day, I am not going to do anything that's going to muddy up the name that my grandparents built for me. Like knowing that my dad's parents worked on this farm in rural North Carolina where, I lost my grandmother at 10, my grandfather at 20 literally worked himself to death, right? My mom's parents who moved here from Virginia, still blessed to have them, but work themselves to put us in the position where we're at. I'm not going to risk that. Because I always say that when this is over, for me, like, I still like to be out amongst my people. I was in the grocery store yesterday, right, just having conversations with people. I still go back to, Park Heights and hang out at Park Heights and Quantico. When this is over for me, I got to be able to go back into those spaces and face my family and friends and have them say, like, you did what you said you were going to do, but you didn't compromise yourself or risk our name or what you believe in. So you don't have to worry about that with me. But listen, if a young lady is playing on a co-ed team, she get her shot blocked, I'm going to push.
Talk that shit.
I'm going to talk. It doesn't matter. Don't guard me unless you want to be burned.
All right. You know what? I'm not gonna take it as a challenge, but we'll find one day in the future we'll get not a one-on-one because I don't want that smoke. But I want to be at least in the area to see how it is, and then we'll figure it out. Maybe a game of 50 or something. We'll figure it out. Council President, I really appreciate you coming on. Again, if they need to reach you, want to talk to you about anything, how can they contact you?
Yep, at Council Pres BMS, Council President at BaltimoreCity.gov. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Thank you. We'll talk soon, and any way I can help, I'll be there to help. Thank you, President.
Peace.
Well, how fun was that? That was pretty cool, huh? That was all right. He was cool. Talking a lot of shit. Hey, if you're still watching, I thank you. I appreciate you. Make sure you like. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow us on all the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram. Actually, Instagram first. Facebook, YouTube, especially. We're gonna try to keep these type of interviews coming. For those who are new to the program, we talk to everybody: musicians, scientists, NASA, MMA fighters, UFC fighters, your favorite professional dancer, Baltimore Street, wink, wink. So we're a non-filter program. We like to keep it straight from the heart, but we also want to touch on some of the topics that you guys want to talk about. So shoot me a DM, shoot me a message if you have any questions or concerns, or if you have a gift or a story you want to tell on this platform. I'm here for it. Love you. Appreciate you. Go tell somebody you love them. Really. Stop being petty. Go tell somebody you love them. Get over it. Bye. And we're done. And we're done.